Good evening and welcome to the Lunenburg Board of Trust Funds Commissioners. It is 5 o'clock and we will call this meeting to order. If we could all stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Today is Thursday, October 9th, 2025. In accordance with the requirements of the open meeting law, please be advised that this meeting is being recorded and broadcast live over the Lunenburg Public Access channel on Facebook Live on the Public Access Facebook page. The link can be found on the agenda online at lunenburgma.gov, and it will be uploaded to Lunenburg Access YouTube after the meeting. Additionally, please be advised that the town of Lunenburg utilizes the Zoom platform as host for its hybrid and remote meetings, that the Zoom platform utilizes AI technology known as AI Companion to create audio transcriptions of meetings to aid in the subsequent preparation of meeting minutes, and that AI Companion is activated immediately upon launching the Zoom application. You are hereby notified that this AI technology may capture audio prior to the start of a meeting and or following the conclusion of a meeting. That's a hot mic. This meeting will be held in person at the location provided on this notice. Members of the public are welcome to attend this in-person meeting, and note that while an option for remote attendance and/or participation is being provided, it is a courtesy to the public. The meeting will not be suspended or terminated if technological problems interrupt the virtual broadcast unless otherwise required by law. Members of the public with a particular interest in any specific item on this agenda should always make plans for an in-person versus virtual attendance accordingly. The following information is also provided for members of the public that would like to participate in the meeting remotely. To participate remotely from a computer, use the link that is on the page. It is highlighted in red. Or you could use a telephone. You could dial 888-475-4499. You could enter the webinar ID, which is 766-316-7607, and then hit pound. If you have not registered with Zoom, you will be asked for your name and your email address. No participant ID is needed. All you need to do is just press the pound key when asked. Telephone users can dial *9 to request to speak after joining the meeting. Computer and app users may use the raise the hand feature, which you can find on your computer screen at the bottom, to request to speak. The agenda lists all the topics which may be discussed at the meeting and those that are reasonably anticipated by the chair. Votes may be taken as a result of these discussions. Not all items listed may in fact be discussed, and other items not listed may also be brought up for discussion to the extent permitted by the open meeting law. I'd like to begin by opening our meeting with public comment. Do we have any public comment from the public? There's no public here, and I do not see that we have any public on Zoom. Is there any public comment from the commissioners?
I have no comment, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Chair Richard. And I have no public comment. So we can move right into our agenda. We don't have any announcements or communications from any trust representatives today. Just so everybody is aware, our scheduled meetings are every second and fourth Thursday. Last month, we were sort of vacationing at the end of the month, so we didn't hold our meeting on the fourth Thursday. Come as a reminder, November and December the meetings on the fourth week will be changed and adjusted. I got reminded that today by PAC, just as an aside, that those times on Thursdays kind of fall into the holidays. So that being said, We'll move on to our next portion of our agenda, which is Treasurer and Finance Director reports. We have none at this time. Just to reiterate, if anybody wants to know what it is that occurs here, there is a great discussion with regard to the fiduciaries of this commission and what is held by this commission and its operation that was given by Bartholomew and Company, who is our private trust company, in a previous meeting. It's a good watch for an understanding of how your money is working for you through these trust commissions, funds that we have authority over. As well, there was a discussion somewhat about other town funds that are applicable in same. So I might go out of line here with new business, just so you know. Before we get into new business, Richard, is there anything in new business that you want to discuss specifically or comment on before we get into it or raise any question?
No, I have nothing specific.
Nothing? Okay. All right. So what I'd like to do is, before getting into new business, I would like to segue into some explanations, some understandings, so that the list of new business that we have here, including a discussed proposed written policy, discussed rewriting of our risk policy after our meeting that we had with Bartholomew and Company, discussed and vote on duties of the chairman of the board, the issue regarding public charities and ethics funding. On those aspects, I wish to move, Richard, if you go to our drive file, if you would like to follow along, if you open up member written statements, there's a number of statements, and I'll highlight them by name. I would like to give the public an understanding of our progress to begin, and what we have been doing with regard to the trusts that are under our purview. This is an investigative review that we have been engaged in since our election in May of 2025 of the Lunenburg Board of Commissioners of Trust Funds. And as stewards of the charitable and public purpose funds entrusted to our town, Lunenburg Board of Commissioners of Trust Funds has undertaken a thorough and thoughtful investigation into the scope of our responsibility, particularly as they relate to gifts, bequests, real estate, scholarships, historical assets, cemetery assets, conservation assets, and the like. Our goal is to ensure that we're acting in full compliance with Massachusetts law, specifically complying with donor intent, which is the primary directive in trusts that are handled that are gifts and bequests, and municipal ethical standards while maintaining transparency and accountability. With regard to real estate gifts and sales, with regard to real estate, we began by examining the legal implications of real estate gifted to the town for a specific public purpose. We asked a few questions. If the town cannot fulfill the donor's intended use and elects to sell the property, must the proceeds be redirected under the Cypre doctrine? We also asked, should these funds be placed in a separate trust fund and used for a similar purpose? 3, does the Board of Trust Fund Commissioners control the proceeds from such sales? Our findings confirm that when a public purpose gift cannot be fulfilled, the town must seek a Cypre ruling from the court to redirect the proceeds in a way that aligns as closely as possible with the donor's original intent. The fund should be placed in a dedicated trust fund, and the trust fund commissioners will manage those funds if no other entity is designated for that. We also investigated scholarship funds. We explored the management of scholarship gifts. We were asking a few questions. Are all scholarships managed by the trust funds commissioners? If a donor does not designate a school district or scholarship committee, do we assume responsibility for that appropriation and oversight? In the absence of a scholarship committee, does the authority to distribute funds fall to the Commissioner on Trust Funds? Are we responsible for forcing the donor's declaration alone or approving scholarship distribution or both at the same time? And do we authorize appropriations for scholarships that are established within Chapter 60 of Mass General Laws, Section 3C, and those funds which are outside of Chapter 60, Section 3C, that qualify as trusts? The law indicates that the trust fund commissioners do manage scholarship funds when it is designated either by the donor, meaning that the donor has not designated, and we'll get into detail with that, the donor has not specifically designated the school or designated a scholarship committee or anyone. A gift to somebody is a gift to the town. If a gift is given to the schools of Lunenburg, that is a gift to the town. That is not a gift governing authority of who oversees that gift. However, scholarships under Chapter 60, Section 3C are and usually typically managed by a separate committee and not by our board outside of, and I'll get into some additional legal detail to give you an idea of what that entails. Cemetery funds. We reviewed our role in managing cemetery-related funds. We asked a couple of questions. Does the Cemetery Commission have full control over funds under Chapter 114, Sections 15 and 25? And must appropriations be approved by the trust fund commissioners? These questions were asked because there are towns who do delegate perpetual care and sale of lots funds to the Board of Trust Funds Commissioners for their management and appropriation, even though that they have a cemetery commission present. And again, that is an action that obviously that town chose to take in direction, which they have the ability to do so in the purview of the community by vote or in bylaw. We found that the Cemetery Commission in the town of Lunenburg has statutory authority over perpetual care and related funds to them. The trust fund commissioners do not have jurisdiction unless the donor or the town explicitly assigns that role to us. Conservation and historical assets. We investigated our responsibilities regarding conservation land and historical property. We asked a few questions. Are we responsible for conservation land gifted to the town? If historical property is gifted and later liquidated by the Historical Commission, do the proceeds fall under our authority? And is the Lunenburg Historical Society a municipal entity? Our review confirms that the conservation land is managed by the Conservation Commission, and I believe that is Article 97 of the Constitution, and we'll get into that a little later. And historical property is overseen by the Historical Commission. The Lunenburg Historical Society is a private nonprofit, not a municipal body. Proceeds from the sale of historical property do not automatically fall under our control unless it is designated by the donor, designated by the town, or there is no specific designation of which the donor had requested who has authority. And I'll say this again, just because somebody says that I'm giving a gift to the Historical Society, okay, means that that's a gift given to a private entity, not to the town. Like if somebody said, I'm giving a gift to the school, which is not a private entity, or I'm giving a gift to the town of Lunenburg, which is not a private entity, which would fall through to us, as opposed to the Historical Commission, which is a private entity, a private 501c3. Their rules are promulgated by the Public Charities Division of the Attorney General's Office. We also asked a number of questions about our abilities to fundraise, engage in fundraising, and the creation of nonprofits through the use of the money of which we have authority over to be able to build larger funds or to consolidate funds that are along the same manner or type for benefit to the people of Lunenburg. And just to clarify, so the money for which the trust funds commissioners hold is money that is given as a gift by a donor, is given in will or trust by a donor, or in somebody's death and a bequest, and whether that is money or it is land. I'm going to get into that in a little bit. And the land could no longer be used, but needs to be liquidated and turned into cash. That becomes financial. That comes under our purview. I'll get into that in a little bit. And any other monies. It's what the donor wants, that's what we enforce. So we do have some transactions, which we're going to get into later, that we do know of some money that has been released from some of our funds, and we're going to talk about the process of that. We also asked whether or not the commissioners are allowed to solicit donations and create nonprofit organizations. Mass law does not authorize us to form a nonprofit, even with our funds. And soliciting donations must be done cautiously and in compliance with state ethics law. We are allowed to ask the public to be able to donate money to the funds that already exist from this public room. We are able to ask you to give us money to help veterans. We are allowed to ask you to give us money and donation to be able to help the poor, to give us money to be able to protect older sidewalks, because we have a sidewalk fund. So we do have the ability to be able to ask and to solicit for that publicly. Finally, we examined the process about engaging in a cypre doctrine, particularly in cases involving real estate sales, scholarships, funds, gifts, or bequests where the original purpose cannot be fulfilled. We confirmed that this process involves 5 different steps that I will follow through with. Determining the original purpose, that purpose is impossible or impracticable to be able to comply with. Filing a petition with the probate court. Notifying any interested parties, so if somebody is an heir, they need to be notified. Receiving a court ruling on it, and managing the redirected funds in accordance with that ruling. Now, as far as funds that are under $75,000 that are more than 20 years old, that falls under the purview of the Public Charities Office of the Attorney General. That does not need a cypre doctrine filing. It just needs to go through the Public Charities Office for its change in use. It's not a change in use. It's just converting the use into something more modern. In any case, we'll get into that and a couple other things that I have to read here tonight. Our conclusion: these inquiries reflect our commitment to legal integrity, donor respect, and public trust. We have attempted to work with town council and other municipal bodies to clarify our role and ensure that all gifts and bequests are managed in accordance with the law, and our inquiries have not been received well by this administration. We recognize what our duties are as stewards over these funds, and particularly when there is a financial need in town, to help our residents. This money belongs to you. All these things that we're discussing here belongs to you and us as residents. The people is who this money belongs to help. And this is a time and a season where people need help, and we need to do something about it. We recognize what our duties as stewards are. Read that line again, if you don't mind. We recognize what our duties are as stewards over these funds, and particularly when there is a financial need in town to help our residents. We want to be sure we acquire all monies from everywhere that hasn't been looked at, and appropriate as much of this money back to the residents of the community and to the needs of the town, and fully comply with the wishes of those who have generously contributed to the future of Lunenburg. And I want to thank you for following up, but that's so much so about what we've been doing, contrary to what anybody may think, why we're asking for more help. We need another member. It would be good for us to have more help, but we have something on the agenda to be able to try to get that help, and also to provide, a good service to somebody who is learning and growing, and that'll come up in a moment.
Mr. Chair, if I could ask a question.
Sure.
The soliciting donations must be handled cautiously, as you noted. What are some of the parameters around what you shouldn't be doing? For example, like if you had in the town report put in, like, I'll call it an advertising, say, hey, consider donating or helping to fund some of these existing funds that exist within the town is
That's not appropriate. So it's appropriate to the extent that it cannot be a public newspaper, meaning that we can't go to, the local town paper and pay for an advertisement, okay, to say donate to these funds, okay? We can say that these funds are available and these are what these funds are and for by giving a public notice, and then we're allowed to put a little asterisk down the bottom that says donations can be received into these funds, meaning that it's not a direct solicitation. Also, the solicitation can't come with, like, somebody says, oh, I want to give $175,000 to build a wall. Do you know what I mean? But I want this person's name to be on the wall. And we say, oh, yeah, sure, I could do that. We can't take a donation like that comes with something being given, because then it's buying it. We can't take a donation from, we can take donations from a nonprofit, you know what I mean, to benefit. We can take donations, through that can come before this board. All donations, just so you're aware, that we are allowed to take donations that come with restrictions. So if somebody wanted to donate to the fire department, that would go to the chief and the select board. Okay, that wouldn't come to us. Okay, so that would be like let's say somebody wanted to donate bulletproof vests for the police department, aqua tanks, for the the tanks that they wear for fighting fires and stuff, or jackets or suits, things like that. Okay, those are one-time donations. What we're looking at is donations that are going to be in perpetuity. Those things go before the select board. The select board makes those decisions on those. We enforce donors' wishes to a donation. So if somebody gives a donation, says, I want to give a donation to benefit the poor, they can come and they can create a donation. They can create an independent trust. They could write it in a letter and send a check. And that letter would specifically say there are certain parameters. It should say, I want the Trust Funds Commission to be the authorization for the distribution of this money to the poor. There's a lot of language that has to go in that, and that's why we have a lawyer in town.
Or they could donate to an existing fund that's established?
Yes, they can.
As long as they agree with the declarations?
Yes, they can, as long as they agree, they know that the declaration of what that fund says is to help the poor. Right. You want to donate money to that fund, you are more than welcome to donate that money to that fund. Here's the thing, when you donate money to that fund, that money is tax deductible. Where if you donated money to the cemetery, that's not tax deductible. But to us, it is tax deductible because it's being donated into an already pre-existing fund. So, moving on. Any more? Thank you. All right. So the next thing I want to do is I want to talk about the lessons that we can learn from a particular case called Woodward versus Quincy, which is all about fiduciary duty and the sale of trust property and how it gets used. I'm just going to read something here just to give you an idea of how this works. Today, I have this written, almost as like a bullet point for everybody to understand. This case that I'm going to discuss here, it bridges three worlds: education, philanthropy, and public accountability. The case is the Woodward School for Girls versus the City of Quincy, and it's a decision in 2014 by the Supreme Judicial Court. This case arose from a remarkable legacy, a trust established in 1822 by former President John Adams, later expended by his grandson to support the education of young women in Quincy. For nearly 2 centuries, the City of Quincy served as trustee of the charitable trust, yet over time, a fundamental question came before the courts. Did the city fulfill its fiduciary duties in managing the trust property and investments, especially its real estate? The heart of the dispute: mismanagement in real estate sales. The Woodward School, as the sole income beneficiary of the Adams Trust, brought a claim alleging that the city had failed to act prudently in managing the trust assets. Among the most serious accusations was mishandling of trust real estate. The city had sold certain parcels of trust-owned property, but the school contended these transactions were made without adequate prudence or financial foresight, that the city did not properly appraise or assess the long-term value of the properties, sold them under market conditions unfavorable to the trust, and failed to reinvest the proceeds in a way that preserved or enhanced the value of the trust's principal. The sale of trust real estate lies at the core of a trustee's duty of prudence. Real estate held by a charitable trust is not just an asset, it is part of a living legacy. The trust must ensure that when property is sold, the transaction advances the charitable purposes, protects the trust corpus, and reflects sound judgment informed by market conditions and fiduciary responsibility. The court's view, prudence requires vision. In its decision, the Mass SJC emphasized the prudent investor rule, codified in Mass General Laws 203C, and under this rule, trustees must manage assets, including real estate, not in isolation, but part as a comprehensive investment strategy that considers risk and return objectives suited to the trust, the needs of the income beneficiary, and the long-term preservation of the principal. The court recognized that even though the Woodward Trust had only an income beneficiary, the city was still obligated to protect the principal against inflation and maintain its capacity to generate income in perpetuity. The problem with the city's management, including its sale of real estate, was that it reflected short-term thinking and a failure to plan for future growth. Selling property without reinvesting in assets capable of appreciation meant the trust corpus steadily lost value over time. The court viewed this as not merely as a poor decision, but as a breach of fiduciary duty, a failure to act with the prudence, diligence, and foresight that the law demands of every trustee. Why the real estate issue mattered? The sale of the trust property was emblematic of a larger issue, the city's misunderstanding of its role as trustee. The city acted less like a fiduciary and more like a municipal manager. This can be a problem. Treating the trust as a set of accounts rather than a living endowment with an enduring charitable mission. And this is what our board does. We keep things in an enduring charitable direction, in perpetuity. People give money because it memorializes their name. When a trustee sells real estate, it must ask, will this sale serve the trust purpose in the long term? Are we ensuring the proceeds are reinvested prudently? And have we obtained professional advice, independent evaluation, and exercised due care? In this case, the court found that the city failed on several of these fronts. Its actions were not aligned with the Prudent Investor Act's vision of a balanced, forward-looking approach. A broader lesson, trusteeship and accountability. This is key. The Woodward case reminds us that trusteeship is an act of stewardship. This is not convenience. Selling trust real estate is not simply just a financial transaction. It is a decision that affects generations of beneficiaries in the integrity of a charitable purpose. The Mass SJC made clear that municipal trustees are held to the same standards as private ones. Sovereign immunity cannot shield the public entity from accountability when it acts as a fiduciary. If a government chose to hold charitable property, it must do so with the same prudence, care, and loyalty that the law demands of a private trustee. This is where I say, if there are conversions of property into cash that this town has done, these are some of the research that we're continuing to do. Why? Why do you say that? Why would we do this? Because that money goes back to you. It goes back to you, the person who lives in this community and is in need in this community. That these properties and the money that has been paid for these properties come back to you, okay, in compliance with what the donor requested. Massachusetts Court made clear that municipal trustees are held to the same standards as private ones. Sovereign immunity can't shield it, and if a government chooses to hold it, they have to use it with prudence. Conclusion. In the end, the court removed the city of Quincy as trustee, finding that it had breached its fiduciary duties, including through its imprudent management and sale of trust property. It ordered damages and prejudgment interest to make the schools whole, and reaffirmed a principle as old as the Adams Trust itself. To hold in trust, and this is I quote, to hold in trust is to hold in confidence, to manage not for oneself, but for the enduring good of others. The Woodward case thus stands as a cautionary tale and a guidepost to municipalities. Whether a trustee is a city, a corporation, or an individual, the duty is the same: to act prudently, to plan for the future, and to ensure that every sale, every investment, every decision honors the purpose and perpetuity of the trust. This brings me to the next direction. And this is what I'm trying to express here, and I'm trying to put forth before you, that I know that there is land in this town that has been liquidated into cash and has been placed in somewhere. I don't know if it goes to the general fund or what the practice was before. But this case came out in 2014 with a determination, and it also quoted a couple other cases, which I'm going to speak on now. This is about what we call the enduring obligation of public gifts. This lesson comes from Cohen versus Lynn. This is a 1992 case. When land is conveyed to a city or town, whether by gift, bequest, or deed, it carries not only value and property, but an enduring moral and legal obligation. Massachusetts appeals courts reminded us of this landmark case of Cohen versus Lynn. In that case, the city of Lynn had sold a small parcel of land to a private developer, but that land had been originally conveyed in 1893 with the deeds declaring that it was to be held by the city to its own use and behoove forever for park purposes. Nearly a century later, the city called the parcel no longer usable for park purposes and authorized its sale for private development. This is my point. There's sales of property going on in Lunenburg. Which of these were given gifts and bequests that have a will and a trust attached to them? Nobody's looking for it. Well, we are. A group of concerned citizens, 24 residents and taxpayers, challenged that sale. They brought what's known as a 10 taxpayers action under General Laws 214, Section 310. That's 10 taxpayers filing a lawsuit against the town. A statute that allows citizens to enforce the purpose of any gift or conveyance accepted by a municipality for a specific purpose or purposes in trust or otherwise. And that's a quote from that statute. The court held, and I quote, "The conveyances of 1893 stating that the land was to be used forever for park purposes created a public charitable trust. The acceptance of those deeds by the city constituted a contract between the donors and the donee, which must be observed and enforced." In other words, when a city accepts a gift of land for a public purpose, it does not acquire full unfettered ownership. It becomes a trustee, bound to uphold the intent of the donor and to preserve the property for the public use designated. The city argued that the trust was no longer practical, that the land was too small, too isolated, and that its use as a park was impractical. But the court rejected the claim, finding that the parcel was still used by walkers, riders, joggers, and provided a scenic vista of open space suitable for park purposes. The judge, after viewing the site personally, described it as possessing a beautiful scenic ocean view, forming a green edge to the parkway. These findings led the court to rule that it had not become impossible or impractical to carry out the trust purpose. The doctrine of Cypre, which allows modification of charitable trust only when their purpose truly cannot be fulfilled, did not apply here. The court also addressed an important point about consideration, whether the trust could exist if the city paid part of the purchase price. The answer was clear. This is key. The receipt of some consideration does not bar the creation of a public charitable trust. Meaning that if the city is paying money to care for some land, okay, that has a trust, a will, okay, or it's considered donated land to the town, okay, they do not own it and can't call it for themselves. It belongs to the people. The donors themselves had contributed funds to the public subscription, reaffirming that their intent that the land be secured for public enjoyment forever. Most significantly, the court condemned the idea that special legislation could ratify the sale after the fact. It held that a city's obligation under a public charitable trust cannot be impaired legislatively. The special act authorizing the sale can neither impair the trust obligation nor ratify the conveyance. And in words that every public official should remember, the court quoted an earlier decision. The firmly settled and frequently declared policy of the Commonwealth has been to preserve public parks free from intrusion of every kind which would interfere in any degree with their complete use of this public end. It cannot be assumed that this policy is to be lightly thrown aside. Thus, the appeals court affirmed judgment for the citizens. The conveyance to the developer was declared null and void, and the city was ordered to restore the parcel to its prior condition. The lessons learned in this case: property conveyed to a municipality for a public purpose, park, library, or green, becomes a charitable trust. Once accepted, that trust creates a contractual obligation that binds the city and its successors. Neither convenience, development pressure, nor legislative authorization can release a municipality from that trust. As long as the public purpose remains possible, it must be upheld. In short, when towns receive real estate for park purposes or any other charitable or civic use, they hold it not as owners but as guardians. These are not parcels to be traded or repurposed. They are promises, gifts to the public, given in trust, and that trust must be honored. The decision is more than a legal precedent. It's the reminder of stewardship. Public land dedicated to the people remains for the people. When a deed says forever, the law means it. I know that, some of this might not be an understanding, but when you have people in town who want to make comments that we don't do our job. Oh, we're doing our job. We're doing our job very well. We're looking for your money. That's what we're doing. We're looking for your money that belongs to you, okay? And we don't want anybody to take it from you. If it belongs in a trust, then we want to see it. And we want the town's help, but the bureaucrat here does not help with what we want. They ask us why we want to talk about land. They ask why we want to do this. Why do we want to look in deep? Why do we want to do a deep dive? We want to do that because it is the money that belongs to the people of the town. If these lands have been liquidated and sold and those proceeds have not been used, okay, as a proper to whatever the land was left for. I'm reading cases to you. I have one more to read and then a summation. I hope you all understand what I'm doing here. And I hope everybody speaks up, because real estate is a lot of money. When your town needs money, the first thing they want to do is sell real estate. They want to sell real estate to developers. They want to sell real estate to get more money to pay bills. They want to do that. But if there is a will or a trust declaration or a gift that was said, there was something written that says this is what it's to be used for the benefit of the people, then that is under our purview to be sure that it's enforced. The Law and Lessons of Carroll versus the Select Board of Norwell. This is in 2024. I'm going to discuss this case, which is a touchstone for understanding the scope of municipal authority, land dedication, and the rule of law and local governance. The Supreme Judicial Court settled this and decided it in January of 2024. At the heart of this case, there was one fundamental question. When a municipality holds land, how do we determine whether it has been dedicated to a specific public purpose? And what legal consequences follow from that designation? The town of Norwell owned a parcel of land on Wildcat Lane, originally obtained through tax foreclosure in 1989. In 2004, a town meeting voted to make the land available for affordable housing. Over the years, the town's actions, including reports, consultant studies, and housing plans, consistently referred to the property as site designated for affordable housing. However, in 2021, a group of residents proposed transferring the same land to the town's Conservation Commission to be preserved for recreation, conservation, in perpetuity. The town meeting approved this transfer by a 2/3 vote. This is going to show you how process is very important. But the Select Board refused to act, arguing that under General Laws 40, Section 15A, the land could not be diverted from affordable housing to conservation without first determining that it was no longer needed for the original purpose. Residents sued, but the Land Court and the SJC did side with the Select Board. Chapter 40, Section 15A provides whenever a board or officer having charge of land constituting the whole or any part of an estate held by a city or town for a specific purpose determines that such land is no longer needed for such purpose, the town, 2/3 vote by a 2/3 may transfer such land for another specific municipal purpose. This section codifies a long-standing rule. Land held for a specific municipal purpose cannot be used for another purpose unless the board in charge first determines it is no longer needed for the original purpose, and the town then authorizes the change by a 2/3 vote. That means that if they want to do it, then they have to ask everybody else. They can't just do it on their own. They need to ask the 2/3 of the town, should we do this? Can we do this? But if there's a trust attached to it or a donor's request for specific use, then they come to us. The totality of the circumstances test is what's used here. The court established an important clarification, which is how do we know when land is held for a specific purpose under 15A? Previously, some believed the town had to record a deed restriction or formally transfer custody of land to another board to create a specific purpose. Nope. The court said no. Instead, drawing from Smith versus Westfield in 2017, the court applied the totality of the circumstances test. Under this test, land is held for a specific municipal purpose if the totality of the circumstances demonstrates a clear and unequivocal intent by the town to hold the land for that purpose. This connects to the doctrine of what they call prior public use. They connected 15A to the common law doctrine known as private public use, a principle that land devoted to one public use cannot be diverted to another inconsistent use without clear legislative authority. In Massachusetts, this doctrine has two modern codifications. If you remember, I talked to you about conservation. Article 97 of the Massachusetts Constitution, which protects land dedicated to conservation and park purposes, and General Laws, Chapter 40, 15A, which governs municipal land held for specific public purposes. Both of them embody the same principle. Once land has been publicly dedicated to one use, it cannot be repurposed without lawful process. Meaning that if conservation has land that's dedicated to conservation and they want to make it public use, well, it can't be both, and it has a process. The court reinforced that municipal officers are legal custodians of land, not mere agents of public sentiment. Even when a town meeting votes for a change, the select board must comply with the statutory process. Section 15A applies. Even if the land is under the control of the select board itself, the board still must make a formal finding that the land is no longer needed for its prior use before any transfer can occur. This ensures accountability and prevents arbitrary shifts between competing public purposes. Specific purpose is defined in municipal law as land that is held for a specific purpose when the totality of the evidence shows a clear intent to dedicate it. No automatic transfers, even a 2/3 town meeting vote, cannot override the legal process required by 15A. A board determination is required. The board having custody must first determine that the land is no longer needed for its original use. This brings me back to land given or donated for the benefit of the town that is not specifically donated like to conservation, okay? But if it's donated to parks, if it's donated for any reason, it comes here. The prior public use doctrine, both Section 15 and Article 97, protect the integrity of public land use, municipal accountability. And don't get me wrong, like there's some parts of parks that belong to parks. It's got to be a gift. I don't want anybody to get confused. Parks does an awful lot in this town, and they actually do pretty good with the limited resources. So, prior public use doctrine, both 15A and Article 97 protect the integrity of public land use and municipal accountability, as local officials must uphold prior dedications, follow proper legal procedures before altering it. The broader significance is this. The Carroll versus Norwell clarifies the legal hierarchy between democratic will and statutory governance. It teaches that while town meetings are powerful expressions of community voice, they operate within the structure of law and not above it. It protects the public trust by ensuring that land dedicated for one public good cannot be redirected to another without formal deliberation and legal compliance. Carroll versus Select Board of Norwell, the Supreme Judicial Court reaffirmed a timeless principle. Public land, once dedicated to a public purpose, carries a continuing obligation. We have land like that in town. One that towns must honor with care, discipline, and lawful procedure. The case stands as a guidepost for all municipalities, and decisions made in the name of the public must respect legal structures that preserve the public trust. I know, everybody's just waiting. I know there's a lot of reading, but a lot of writing too been going on here. So, now, this is some investigation that I had done, drawing lessons from both Carol and drawing some lessons out of Cohen. So when a gift becomes a trust, how does that work? This is why I wanted to read this to you, because I wanted it to be open to the public, okay? So that you know, this has to do with what we do here. Ladies and gentlemen of the town of Lunenburg, this is important. When a town accepts land, whether by gift, bequest, or vote of its people, it does more than gain an asset. It accepts a public obligation. That land is not merely owned, it is held in trust for the specific purpose for which it was given. And that's an honorable thing to ask and to engage. This obligation is at the heart of Massachusetts law. It was reaffirmed powerfully by the SJC in Carroll and decades earlier in Cohen. When a promise is made, a promise is kept. Cohen, the city had sold a small parcel of land conveyed to its own use for park purposes. Court ruled that it created a trust binding the city and its successors. They said, the court declared, conveyance stating that the land was to be used forever for park purposes made it a trust. The acceptance of those deeds by the city constituted a contract between the donors and the donee, which must be observed and enforced. When a public land is accepted for charitable specific purpose, the municipality becomes a trustee, not an owner in fee. It later cannot treat that land as a mere surplus asset. Oh, I got yelled at for saying that in an email. Now you want to go after land? No, I want to go after money. I want the money that belongs to the townspeople to help the townspeople. People, we got 40% what? What did the food bank say? We have 40% food insecurity in Massachusetts alone. It's disgusting. It's all the climate stuff. Guaranteed. And helping people that shouldn't be here. It's my own opinion. So we need the help. That's what we need to do. And we're working on it. And we're going to get it, and we're going to find it. And we're going to give it to you. The court went on further. A city's obligation under a public charitable trust cannot be impaired legislatively. A special act authorizing the sale could neither impair the trust obligation nor ratify the conveyance. The principle is this, that public trust land cannot be diverted or sold without proper authority. It carries forward directly to the SJC's modern interpretation that they gave in Carroll. When the dedication becomes a restriction, okay, as in the Norwell case, okay, where they wanted to transfer the Wildcat land, a 6-acre parcel, to the Conservation Commission, the land was acquired by the tax foreclosure, as I explained. The town meeting vote explicitly authorized the board to make the parcel available for development of affordable housing. In 2004, in 2007, the town established Community Housing Trust under Chapter 4455C to further that purpose. And town housing production plans from 2013-19 both listed the Wildcat parcel as an identified housing site. Then in 2021, citizens petitioned under Article 26 to transfer the land to the Conservation Commission. It passed by a vote. But the select board declined to transfer it, stating that it had not determined the land was no longer needed for its existing purpose of affordable housing. The decision led to the litigation and the Supreme Judicial Court's reaffirmation of the restrictive nature of land held for a specific public purpose. Okay? The SJC held that the Wildcat land was indeed held for a specific municipal purpose, that was affordable housing, and therefore cannot be diverted to another use without following a process. That's what we're asking for. Where's the process? Well, we've gone asked the attorney. But the attorney says, well, I can't do anything after hours unless the town manager authorizes payment. That's what we got told. We've presented things to him. We get no answer back. When we first came on this board, we asked for, we were inquired of bringing the town attorney into our meeting publicly. We said there's no need to bring him into our meeting publicly. We can discuss, in writing, you could provide to us, or meet with him outside if there's questions or concern about what duties. But we got stepped over. And people in town here that work here don't like that I use that term, but that's exactly what happened. Okay? We know what we were doing, and I hope this shows you that we're doing it. And we're going to get it done. I promise you, we're going to get it done. And when we get it done, you're going to see how much is coming back to you, people of Lunenburg. So the court explained under 15A, once land is held for a specific municipal purpose, it cannot be diverted to another inconsistent public use unless the border officer having charge of it determines that it's no longer needed for that purpose and the town votes 2/3 majority, transfer custody, another purpose. Plaintiffs argued that the vote alone should stand. Well, the SJC disagreed that 2 steps are mandatory, both a board determination and a town meeting vote. The court reaffirmed that the land's directed purpose must be respected unless the proper process is followed. In the words of the opinion, whether land is held for a specific municipal purpose depends on the totality of the circumstances and the clear and unequivocal intent of the town to hold it for that purpose. And in Norwell's case, that intent was mistakable. So land that's held in trust for the public unites both of these cases in a single legal action and ethical truth. Land given, acquired, or dedicated for a specific public use creates a trust, not an option. In Cohen, that trust arose from the words forever for park purposes. In Carroll, it arose from a clear pattern of official actions dedicating land to housing. In both, the courts refused to allow repurposing or transfer until the proper procedure or judicial relief under doctrines like Cypre were met. As the SJC noted, this approach aligns with the prior public use doctrine in Article 97 of the Mass Constitution, which protect public land from diversion without express authority. The lesson for towns and trustees, this is a lesson that we take. This is our take, okay? They're vital reminders to us, okay, that land accepted for a specific purpose is not free. It carries perpetual condition of use, a public trust that binds future boards. So there'll be people that follow us after. Municipal votes or convenience cannot dissolve a trust. Only a legal purpose, like 15A or Cypre doctrine, can make those change. And public stewardship by us is our legal duty. Okay? A town is not a commercial actor, but a guardian of the donor and the public's intent. The court stated some time ago that, I forget who said this, but the firmly settled and frequently declared policy of the Commonwealth has been to preserve public parks, public use lands, free from intrusion of every kind which would interfere with their complete use for this public end. So when we're speaking here of land that has been gifted or dedicated, okay, the words in a deed for park purposes, for housing, for public enjoyment are not suggestion. They're promises written into law, enforceable as public charitable trusts. And when a town accepts these gifts, it accepts solemn duty. It must protect it, use it as the donor intended, and if change is ever necessary, seek proper authority before doing so. A gift of land to the public is not property. It's a covenant. It's a contract. It's a promise. And in Massachusetts, in both Cohen and Carroll, these 2 cases both affirm that the covenant endures forever, in perpetuity, without a proper process. And again, these are the things that we do. If you liquidate land as the town, where is the will? Where is the trust? Where is the donor's request for the use? And is it being complied with, or are you liquidating it and keeping it for yourself? That's what we want to know. And we're looking. We're not getting any help, but we're looking. And we'll keep looking. I promise you, we'll keep looking. So, we have been busy. I hope everybody understands the purpose of me reading this. The purpose is we have a fiduciary duty to all gifts and bequests because all that money comes back to the people in town. And we want to bring it to you. We have $84,000. We have a limit on how much can be spent because of the prudent investor rule. You can't liquidate it out to zero. Can't. Even though zero, you might have heard private trust companies, you can drop it to zero. No, we can't. Not by law, we can't. We have to keep it going. Woodward School for Girls made that very clear. You can't expend it all. And you can't sell real estate that came in a trust and say, oh, that's town property now. Nope. Not when it was designated for a girls' school and you decided to sell it and use it for your general fund. That's not going to happen. And I'm looking, and I'll find it, because I know there's a lot. This town has a lot of history. And if you notice, that case was from 1893, so there's no statute of limitations on how far back I look. So whatever I find in my research, I'll be able to bring forward, and I'll let you know where your money is and where it's been. And I hope to do that efficiently. So on that, Richard, thank you very much for being patient. I'd like to thank everybody for being patient. I know that this isn't something that something that's easily understanding. Because trust me, I don't understand it all the time either. I have to read it 100 times. So just to understand it. So because of the time, I want to move to number 6, which is public charities and ethics fundraising. I think we did cover that, Richard. You asked a few questions with regard to that earlier. Is there anything else that you wanted to add to that? Or is there anything that you wanted to add to the investigation that we've been conducting so far in the information?
Well, just some full disclosure and to give credit where credit's due, I just want the audience to know that Chairman Bowen's been conducting pretty much all of this due diligence and the research to make sure that these important operating principles are being followed, and he's raising some important points, and he's definitely getting into the details and making sure that these funds are being treated with the respect that's due to them. So I just want to call out for recognition that a lot of the research that's cited and is really Chairman Bowen himself that's been conducting this. I've been more in the background and kind of giving more moral support and some administrative support, but all this detailed research into these case studies such as has been Chairman Bowen. So I think he should just be recognized for that he's been working very hard. I can tell obviously from these statements and such that he has been definitely putting in a lot of time to this endeavor, and I just want him to be recognized for that. So
Thank you.
give credit where credit's due. So.
Yeah, I mean, with all humility, I'm grateful for you saying that. However, as vice chairman of this commission, I wanted to make mention to folks that Richard is me when I'm not here. Okay? And Richard is 100% capable of being me when I'm not here. And Richard and I communicate administratively on matters regularly, so that he's never in the dark and shows up here and says, one day I'm not here. He's like, I don't know what he's been doing for 3 months. You know what I mean? Because, there's been things that happen administratively behind the scenes that don't require debate for public meeting, but we have a tendency, we try to bring it all forward when we have information. You don't want to, I mean, if we have to debate something, we'll debate it if it's debatable. If it's not debatable and it's just a ruling of law or it's just a function or operation, I mean, it's quite pointless. And it's not a violation of the open meeting law. I communicate with the open meeting law, the Board of Ethics, the chief counsel, the Division of Local Services. You know, I communicate along these lines all the time whenever I engage or whenever I do anything, just because I want to be on time. So I want the public to be aware of that. And be very clear that I have filed open meeting law violations against people in this town, and I have done things like that. So, you know, what kind of hypocrisy would I be living? So, sorry, not a hypocrite. What you see is what you get. Here I am. And this is what I do. Very good. Investigate. I investigate people, places, things. I do it very well. In any case, I like it. In any case, I do wanted to take a look at, we do have an application. This isn't on the agenda that we had drawn up, and I would like to get a vote that this application is a suitable application for us to be able to use, to be able to let people fill out, to present. It has to go through the lawyer just to check for privacy concerns, but first we have to vote it in. Then we can hand it to the town, and then the town can hand it to the lawyer, make sure, you know, that the application itself, just so everybody knows, I did research other applications around the state and how people do them. I got a number of different ones sent to me because they don't post them online. One I found online, which looked really good. It looked like all the other ones. It was just a little bit cleaner. And so, you know, I wrote one up, you know, utilizing a lot of these resources. But again, I would like to, if you go into you can see legal documents,
Yep.
right? You see the application.
Yeah, I think it was attached to an email.
Yeah, it was
recently,
attached to an
so
email. I
so
think I put it inside the thing too, so.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was attached to an email.
Yeah. My only question was going to be like, how does our application align or differ from anything that you were able to uncover? And it sounded like you addressed that question.
Well, yeah,
Just now, that you did find one posted online, just
yeah.
want to see how.
Oh, yeah.
How did that
This is
compare to? any-
hard to find stuff. Yeah, I have to contact towns directly and say, hey, do you guys have, you know? And they're like, yeah, we got one of those. It's like, could you email it to me? Or, you know, mail it to me, or, you know? So it's like, you know, there's some stuff online. Different towns have them online. It's kind of funny because sometimes the towns don't have them on their town website. It's like somewhere else, and you have to go look there. But towns have like different, I guess because the websites are old and they're not up to date or whatever. I don't know, but it's like, oh, it's not on that one. It's on this one. It's over here. I'm like, oh my gosh, we are organized. Believe it or not. Pretty good to some places that I've been talking to. So I'd like to put a vote on the application. I would entertain a motion
Yeah,
to accept.
I'd like to make a motion that we accept the application for trust fund distribution, I guess is the way to call it, as written.
Upon confirmation that it...
Yeah, upon confirmation from legal counsel that it fits the requirements of HIPAA and other statutory requirements around privacy and such.
Okay.
So,
I will second the motion. All in favor?
aye?
Aye. Vote passes unanimous. We have adopted an application for distribution of trust funds. Just so everybody's aware, the former process was somebody would send a letter and ask. They didn't put out that this money was available, really. I did get some information from the treasurer with regard to that. I saw how the money was donated, and I think that there's a little bit of a compliance issue there. I'm not sure. I haven't seen any minutes. I still have to do some looking. But the money was supposed to, that was given, there was $2,397, I think, from the Worthy Poor Fund in 2017, and there was another distribution in 2008 for a sum of money. And it all came with a specific notice of to follow up in a certain amount of time to be able to work out a payment arrangement to pay it back into the pool that it was given as a loan as opposed to an outright gift. I don't know it's very hard for me to say what the thought process was. I have no idea. I'm not in somebody else's head. You know what I mean? But it didn't have a process. So it was issued. I don't know if it was ever inquired to be able to get paid back the money. I don't see any minutes for it. I'm still researching that. So with that, that's just an update on that fund. I know people have heard me mention that, and I didn't have any information. Mylene sent it to me. Thank you, Mylene. She actually went above and beyond. She actually hunted for it. Because I got yelled at because somebody thought I was asking her to pull minutes for me. She's just proffering information. I keep getting yelled at, y'all, because I'm investigating. You know you're investigating, you're doing the right thing when you get yelled at a lot. So I'm feeling good about it. I feel I'm going to find a lot. That, people don't like it when you turn over rocks. I like turning over rocks. So, that being said, I want to continue. I want to go to number 4, discussion and vote on duties of the chairman. This is based on information of being able to investigate and acquire and ask certain questions of certain state agencies and so on and so forth, like, the Office of Public Charities, the Treasurer's Office, the State Treasurer, the State Auditor, the Office of the Inspector General, including, our delegation, to be able to acquire information with regard to operation of our funds or the handling of our funds, or, the prevention of us from being able to handle our funds. I would like to propose a vote before the board to give me the authority to contact all and any agencies to inquire for any matter or any issue with regard to the handling, management, and administration of trust funds and those dealings in a general precept that would include some of the items I just mentioned.
So this would basically be your ability to represent the interests of the commission as a whole as an individual contact person.
Correct. In that any decision requiring debate, obviously, because of the open meeting law, would obviously have to come through here, but I can't know if it's a debatable issue until first I investigate. So if I'm given permission by this board to do and handle and manage all the investigations necessary to be able to get determinations for things that may or may not need to be brought before this board for action, like, for any matter, you know what I mean? I have to be able to be allowed to investigate it. And if I can't investigate it, totally, because some things cross different boards, some investigations cross, OIG, state auditor, some investigations cross public charities and the court, you know what I mean? So in all that, I want to be able to make all these communications, acting on behalf of the board as the investigator of all matters governing trust funds and the handling of trust funds and the investigation in real estate, other funds that have been here, historical stuff and things like that, that I have to talk to a lot of people. I can't just come here and say, okay, we're going to do this one item. We only have 2 meetings a month. We only meet for an hour and a half. Do you know what I mean? I can spend the time, outside doing it, and, spend, 15 hours a week doing stuff,
Okay. So I'd like to make a motion that we assign to the chairman of the commission the ability to represent the interests of the commission for investigative purposes for all agencies that's required to contact, to investigate issues related to the administration and disbursement and managing of the trust fund commission's assets, funds.
Sounds great. I'll second that motion. All in favor?
Aye?
Aye. Motion passes unanimously. And I want to thank you, Richard, for agreeing to make that motion. Just so you know that in my absence, those duties will fall on you.
Okay.
And I'm not envisioning my absence, but I want people to understand that, look, he's the vice chairman. Right? Do you know what that means? That means that in my absence, he runs the show. So he needs to be abreast of all administrative and managerial situations, okay? In my absence, he can't come here and go, I don't know what he did, okay? So, if anybody's concerned about that, shoot me an email. It's jbowen@lunenburgma.gov. You know what I mean? About, any discussions we might be having administratively to be able to operate and function here. I'll be glad to share it with you. I'm not going to force people to go and do public record requests and stuff like that on my communication. I'll show you my communications.
Well, much of the communications have been you giving me some educational material from documents that are from like the Division of Local Services or Bartholomew, or whatever. It's mostly been
The state archives.
Yeah, state archives on.
I sent him the charter from 1753 when we were under the king.
There have been no.
I can't believe she sent that to me. I says, can you send me most of what you have? She went all the way back, and I was looking at that. I was like, oh, my God. I had a hard time reading it, writing. It's pretty fun, though.
No, people should rest assured that anything that needs to be debated or discussed or decisions have been all conducted solely at these meetings. There's just been mostly educational material that have been shared amongst the chairman and myself. So,
like I said, he's me. This is like a mirror. I want everybody to understand this is a mirror. Okay? State has a definition: vice chairman, chairman. Okay? There are certain duties while I'm alive and sitting here that he's not allowed to do. But when I'm, not alive and not sitting here, he does it.
Well, with two people, if you weren't here, we wouldn't be able to exist
we wouldn't be doing
anyway.
anything anyway.
Wouldn't be able to have a meeting unless we get a third person.
All right. I do want to go on to number 5. I would like to make a vote to engage interns through the Handshake app in the College Career Center programs. I have talked, for investigative purposes, I have talked with 4 schools, and basically it's a college credit type thing where there's a minimum hours a week and so on and so forth. I get told because I'm asking for this by our employees in town. I'm asking for this because I'm lazy and not doing any work. So that's why I'm asking for this. So I just want to make sure everybody understands why I'm asking for this, at least from everybody else's perspective, that every other board doesn't need to use interns. Why does yours? You know what I mean? And why? I don't know. Maybe it's giving somebody an educational opportunity to be able to get credit in a real-time, real-life environment, investigating something that's totally been mismanaged and, not looked at. I don't understand why anybody would resist that, but I got resisted. Again, so I don't see anything wrong with it. I think more boards should use interns. Provides a good educational opportunity for somebody. Career centers are great to talk to. You ever talk to the directors of the career centers? Oh my God, they're like phenomenal. Absolutely, not like when I went to college, but they were just like, just go, here's a list. That's what they gave, here's a list. Go ask the companies if they'll hire you. That's how it worked. Or they'll let you volunteer for them. That's how it worked. So it's not a special employee. It's not a special government employee. They're not that. All they're doing is researching, like usually most of it's internet research, state archives, local records, and so on and so forth. That's all.
Sure.
And But it has an ultimate end for them to come here and give a presentation of what they've researched based on an itinerary that we submit to the school and of what we're looking for and what the duties are, responsibilities are, and how much time would be invested so that they could get credit, and how much time do we have, enough need for that kind of time for them to be able to do that.
Mr. Chair, my assumption is we would have to, at the end of this, provide some feedback to the school.
Well,
on
yes.
The things they were involved with, how well they perform the tasks.
Correct.
and such, But it's, quote, free, it's free research. Free, and it doesn't cost the town.
Well,
any money.
yeah, but I don't
It just
want to
takes
look
some
at it
time
like
for
that. I
us
don't want to
manage
look,
it.
I don't want to look at it like that, because nothing in the world is free. And if anybody knows what freedom is, oh, I already told you, I do. I know it very well. And I'll tell you that nothing is free. There's a cause and effect to everything. I'm a dualist in that respect. There's a good, there's an evil, there's, So, nothing is free, okay? Because this requires nurturing in the direction of education. So at the same time, working through the Career Center. So it's not like, all of a sudden somebody shows up and you never have to talk to the Career Center again. Oh, no, they're going to want to know what went on to, what's the itinerary, it's real detailed. I read it. I'm like, holy crap, really? Do you know what I mean? It's very detailed. And it requires a substantial amount of time, and they do get credit for it. So it has to be specific. It has to have a beginning, a middle, and an end. It has to have an outcome. It has to have some sort of resolve and some sort of participation. And I think that it's an opportunity for them. They're going to be able to help us out. I talked to Suffolk Law, Suffolk Poli Sci. I talked to Fitchburg State. I talked to New England School of Law. You know what I mean? All this legal research is me, me in the state's law library and my Westlaw account. So in LexisNexis, thank gosh I have that. That's a godsend. But like I said, it's just, it's something that I think there's an app called the Handshake app, or it's a Handshake program. I forget what it is. But the town is already registered with it. So it's not difficult for us to be able to get it loaded. We just have to make a vote that it's okay, and we can put a little thing together, about what it will entail, the specifics, and so on and so forth. And I can contact the career centers and stuff like that and do that. But I'd like to put a vote up that we engage the town, particularly Julie Bellavo, the town assistant town manager, who's also the HR director, to be able to get this up and running. So I would entertain a motion to that effect.
Okay, second the motion?
Okay, so the motion will read that we will, I want to say this right, so that we will engage the town HR department to establish a relationship for intern work through local colleges or colleges in general, to assist with investigative research with regard to trust funds commission and the powers and duties that we, not the powers and duties, I'm sorry, with the trust funds commission, for the trust funds commission.
Okay.
Will you second that?
I second.
Okay.
Motion is written.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Passes unanimously, and we will start to inquire about interns to be able to help us. Because, look, there's a lot of real estate in town that has to be looked at. There's a lot of court documents that need to be researched. And some of the research has to go to the archivist at the court department at probate court and land court. So and I've already figured out who the contacts are in both. The person at the probate court, I know them. I've known them for years. And she just, she's like, yeah, tell me what you need. You know what I mean? So, and we can start from there, and we can start doing some more investigating. want to bring money to people in need. That's what we do, rightfully so. We don't want this, we don't want the town liquidating assets when those assets should be converted into what they were supposed to be used for. And we're not going to allow it. All right. So, do you want to rewrite the risk policy? Did you have a chance to look at it, to rewrite it?
I did not review it for,
So you want to table that?
yeah, we can table that.
Yeah, and then, make your edits, and then we'll discuss it at the next meeting.
Yep.
And then, let's see. And then the proposed written policy. As I researched all this case law, I have to change the written policy.
It's the one that we had
Every time I
signed.
do something, I have to change that policy that I wrote.
Okay,
Like every time I do something else, I go, oh, that changed. The case in 2024 now. Okay, well, that case from 2012 is no longer valid. Do you see my point? That's where, so I have to rewrite that. So I just want to bring that up, discuss the rewriting of the proposed written policy, just to discuss it with you. I have to edit it again. Okay, so minutes. We have minutes from, how many minutes do we have? Let's see, we have minutes from August 14th, August 28th, September 11th, to ratify. Have you been able to go over those?
yes.
Okay, I did too. I didn't see anything that needed changing. It looked like you were not detail-oriented 100%, but there was enough in there to say this is what we discussed. And listen, if anybody has questions about what we discussed, email me, I'll email you back. And you ask anybody in this town, if you send me an email, you're almost guaranteed to have it in less than 24 hours. I'm just telling you, that's what, I'm a guy who goes, when it comes in, I get it done. That's just who I am. So, I don't like lingering emails unless, but I'll always answer it. I'll be like, oh, I have your email, let me review, I'll get back to you. And there's no phone number on my email if you want to call. You can ask for my phone number, I'll give you my phone number. I don't mind. I'm not scared. So, I make a motion to accept the meeting minutes from August 14th, August 28th, and September 11th.
Second that motion?
All in favor?
All right.
Aye. Okay, meeting minutes are ratified. Good. All right, so, want everybody to know we still have a vacancy. This is old business. We still have vacancy. Please. How do you get somebody to volunteer?
I don't know.
Oh, God. It's okay. Look, I understand. Look, if you can't do a lot, but you have it upstairs. You know what I mean? The thoughts, the ideas, and things like that. Don't get scared of all this stuff. I can explain this stuff to some extent. Because I try to the public. So explaining it at the board level is okay too. And if I make a mistake and somebody recognizes I make a mistake with anything, please shoot me an email. You know what I mean? Be like, oh, yeah, Mr. Bowen, I think you were meaning this, right? And I'll be like, oh, I'll have to look at that. I'm pretty humble about that. If I'm wrong, I'm wrong. Next. Just don't email me and tell me how much you hate me. I get enough of that on Facebook. So, we can go to goals of the commission. I think the main goal is get straightened out. I think we're doing pretty good. We now have an application. We do have
Right.
trust declarations.
Yes, we've made a lot of progress there's been a lot of progress made
In
since.
5 months.
Since
Yeah.
May. June.
We're getting there. So, is there anything specific that I don't know about that
Not
you're
that I'm-
thinking about that, okay. Follow up on investigations, like I said. Yes, sir. Hold on, I don't want my computer to die. It's probably on 20%, but. Sorry. Phew. It's probably at 20%, but I don't like taking chances. I just saw it pop up on the screen. I said, oh my gosh, it's almost dead. Okay. Sorry, everyone. Thank you for your patience. So, all right, follow up on investigations on the funds. Well, these are some of our investigations that we're doing, further investigations, but as far as the American Legion funds are concerned, they're pretty much static into what they are. The only things that have to come out of them, which, Richard, I do want to put up for a vote, even though I do have the authority to be able to now do and discuss, have those discussions that we just voted on with the Office of Public Charities. I do want to put it up for vote that we do agree that because the money is under $75,000 according to the Public Charities Office, that that the funds do not necessarily need a Cypre document filed, that I get permission to be able to talk to them and make adjustments to those funds and propose, like, what's in there, what has to be taken out. This is what I got from the American Legion. Yeah. Well, there's no people of post 238. No kidding. And they're like, well, you can't give it to people of post 238. I have 283. Do you see what I mean? So we have to take all that stuff out that specifies the specific chapter, yeah, lodge, whatever they call it. Okay, so we have to take that out. But as far as what it's to be used for, it's quite clear. It can be used for, if we want to change it to all veterans and not just members of the American Legion, and this is why I had talked to the American Legion about that. They're not forthcoming in, yay or nay. It doesn't really matter. They said that the American Legion is all veterans, she told me, right? So some of that needs to be changed, that kind of wording needs to be changed, you know what I mean, in review. And I want to be able to talk with the Public Charities Office about having that done. Yeah. Because I believe that they can do that. Those are simple changes because obviously, I just read to you guys, that's what this whole thing is, that said, that I read here about the intent of the donor. You know what I mean? Is primary over all else, and that there's a process, which I read here with all the real estate, all the law in there is about talking about this here too. Okay. When is a Cypre filing? When can we go to public charities? How do we get this changed? You know what I mean? And is it still doing the same intended purpose that it was originally designed for? And that's what all that case law was about. This is what we're talking about now.
So I'd like to make a motion to vote to allow Chairman Bowen to discuss the American Legion funds specifically with the public charities.
To change the declaration.
To change the
language and get that process
more
started.
Generic to, for the intent of as long as it's in alignment with the intent of the donor.
Well, correct.
Language, yeah.
We don't really have much to do with that. We're breaking the law if we don't do that. So, but I'll second the motion.
Okay.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Unanimous. That was unanimous. All right. And I'll bet everybody thought we weren't going to get through this whole meeting. All right. So our next upcoming meeting will be October 23rd. Just so everybody knows, homecoming is coming up November 1st. Halloween is the 31st. I just want to, I'm sorry, I want to open up for public comment before I get into all that, but our next upcoming meeting is October 3rd. Is there any public comment? I don't see anybody on Zoom. We have nobody here. Is there any public comment from the board?
I have no further.
I do have a public comment. I just want people to know that the Massachusetts GOP and Republican Party is actually having a guest who is going to be coming to Massachusetts on Tuesday, and I wanted to make sure that everybody was aware that there is Republican National Committee Chair Joe Gruters on Tuesday at the Dedham American Legion Club at 5:30. Mrs. Carnavale is pushing out that, she'd like us to step up. Any Republicans, any Democrat, any independent, any non-voters, just to get information, just to come and hear the words. The only way things work is when you reach across the aisle, you listen to everybody else. You got to listen. You don't have to agree, but you have to listen. So it's an opportunity for everybody to be able to participate. The Mass GOP, just so people are aware, is moving quite quickly in Massachusetts. There are about 44% of the people in Massachusetts are Republican, and considering that we have no Republican representatives, I don't think that's very fair. But nonetheless, our state has managed to hold itself up. I'm grateful for that. I really am. Even though it looks like it's going to fall apart sometimes, it finds its way back together. Massachusetts is very resilient, and I'm very proud to be a person from Massachusetts. So, that being said, I just wanted to make that public comment, also about Halloween, homecoming coming up, and I guess that's it. That's all I have to say. Is there any public comment from any beneficiaries or anything? Finance directors? Nope. All right, it is 6:30. I will call an adjournment and entertain that motion, Richard.
I'll second that motion.
You make the motion.
I'll make a motion. We adjourn the meeting at 6:30 PM.
Right on. I second that motion. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. The Trust Fund Commission meeting is adjourned at 6:31 PM. Thank you.